Alrighty, we're going to talk about bullets now. The different types of bullets and how a bullet works. If you got a gun, you're going to be firing bullets. So you need to understand what happens when you pull the trigger and how a bullet works and how the bullet gets downrange and the casings, terminology, etc. What you have here in front of you is 4 bullets. You got a 22, you got a 357, you got a 45 APC, automatic Colt pistol is what it stands for, but 45 ACP is just 45 auto round. And then that's a 223 or 556. I'd have to look at it to be sure. There's not much difference. They're about the same. This is a rifle cartridge. This is a handgun. This is a handgun. This can be in a rifle or a handgun. This can be in a rifle or a handgun. That could be in a rifle or handgun. I don't know. I'm sure they make a pistol that'll shoot a 223. I'm not familiar with one if they do. So those are 4 bullets. Okay? The difference between these 4 bullets, this is called a rimfire, and these all have primers. Now, those 2 terms are probably Greek to you guys because you don't know, and that's why I've got this little handy-dandy little chart right here. A primer is the bottom of the bullet. And so at the bottom of a bullet, you're going to see a primer. So I'm going to pick up this bullet here and show you what a primer looks like. See that little round thing in the middle there? That's a primer. That little bitty shiny silver thing, when a firing pin hits that, it goes bang, makes a spark. There's a bunch of gunpowder inside here. That gunpowder ignites and explodes. That explosion, because it's sitting inside a barrel, it can't expand this way, so it forces this bullet down the barrel. And that's how your bullet gets downrange. Okay, so inside a cartridge you have a primer, and we're going to go on a centerfire, which I just showed you. You have a primer, which sets right there on a bullet. This is your gunpowder that's inside. The bullet that flies out is right here. And the thing that I commonly call brass or a casing is the thing that holds all this. The casing holds the primer, the gunpowder, and the bullet. So when this little primer is punctured or hit with a striking force, it makes a little bitty charge that throws out sparks and flames into the gunpowder. The gunpowder ignites, it explodes, it forces the bullet down the barrel, and that's how your bullet gets downrange. Man, that's got to be the shortest video on bullets ever made. Now, I'm going to show you what a rimfire looks like. A rimfire doesn't have a primer. Let's take a look at this rimfire. No primer. Well, Rick, how does that bullet shoot? It's called a rimfire. The rim is the primer. So you have gunpowder in this little rim right here, and when you puncture that, that ignites the powder. So if I pull this bullet right here off, dump this powder off, and put this little casing in there, it'll go pop when this thing is cracked or bent. And this is the same little chart over here for a rimfire. The primer is at the bottom. So the actual charge is in this area. It doesn't have a thing at the bottom. The actual primer is around the edge on the rim, hence the name rim fire. When you hit that, it sparks, it lights the powder pushes the bullet downrange. So that's pretty much. And then this little chart over here shows kind of what I was talking about there. Didn't know I even had this, I wasn't looking at it. So when the firing pin or the hammer, you'll hear firing pin and hammer, they're kind of used in rifles. A lot of times the hammer will hit the firing pin and jam it forward. In a revolver, this looks like a revolver hammer. The firing pin is actually on the hammer. So this is the firing pin. So when this firing pin hits the center of the round there, it makes a flash. All this gunpowder is expanding. That expansion causes force to push the bullet down, and then the bullet takes off down the barrel. So that's how bullets work. Now, what is the difference between bullets and what's good and bad about bullets? Okay, I'm going to sit down and talk about bullets. I like bullets. Okay, and as I said before, darn it, I can't see if I'm on camera or not. Stupid. As I said before, bullets are bullets have come a long way in time. They've gotten better. They've gotten much more accurate. So a long time ago, I would say a 380, which is smaller. This is the 357. This is a 45. You notice the bigger hole? The 45 is bigger around than the 357. The 223 is pretty little compared to these two. The 22 is really little compared to 357. This 22 can kill you just as quick as any of those other guns. Okay? You may have to be a little more accurate, you may have to hit your target, but it'll still kill you. The things that I think about bullets that are important, and this goes about stopping a human, stopping a threat. When a bullet enters a person, it creates what's called a primary cavity and a secondary cavity. The primary cavity is where this bullet travels. Okay? If I stabbed you with a knife, the primary cavity would be the same size as the knife. If it was a wide knife, your cavity would be this long. If it was a little narrow knife, your cavity would be that long. So if you look at a bullet like a knife and it stabs somebody, that's your primary cavity. Wherever this bullet goes, it creates a hole, and that's a primary cavity. The secondary cavity is created by speed and inertia that spreads out. So if I take this gun and I slowly lower it into a bucket of water and I lay it down at the bottom of the bucket and I lay my hand out, nothing happens. There's no splash. This gun made a primary cavity of as big as it is when I set it in that water. If I take this gun and drop it in the water, it goes kind of like when you do a cannonball and you jump in a pool. The bigger the splash, you win. That splash is a secondary cavity. When this bullet goes through you, the primary cavity is the bullet, the secondary is the splash that is moving everything out of its way and creating that void that fills back in. So when you get into wound ballistics, you want good primary and you want good secondary, because both do damage, and my goal is to stop you from hurting me or attacking me. So the quicker I can make you fall and stop your will to attack me, the better. Now sometimes I can't stop your will. If you're on drugs, psyched out, you're on psych meds, you don't know what you're doing, you don't feel pain, you've taken a lot of crank, cocaine, whatever, then I can't stop your will. So then I have to stop you physically. And the only way to do that is to take out your ability to move, a large bone, take out a hip, a shoulder, a knee joint, something to where you can't lose your leg. That's not going to stop you from trying to attack me. It's not going to stop you from shooting me, but it's probably going to stop you from closing distance. Distance is your friend. Distance is time. The further I can stay away from a suspect, the more I can keep a distance, the more reaction time I have to defend myself, to escape, to keep a distance, to give me a chance to get behind cover, concealment, etc. So, let me try to stay on bullets here before I get off another topic. When you want a primary and secondary cavity on a bullet, that secondary cavity does damage to any organs. If I have a primary cavity and it misses my lung by that much, so this hole goes right next to my lung, but if it's going so fast that it creates a 4-inch secondary cavity, that's going to shock and blow my lung out of the way like a big splash in a water bucket or when you hit the pool. And that's going to create shock. That's going to create displacement. It may start bleeding. It may shut down my lung and collapse my lung. I want secondary cavity as much as I want primary cavity. Now there's an argument out there in the gun world on which one's better. Speed, because speed will give you your secondary cavity. Size and mass will give you your primary cavity. The lighter the bullet, the less it's going to go through. If I get a big bullet traveling hard, it takes more force. It's kind of like if I throw a straw at you or if I throw a wooden spear. Which one's going to go in more? The wooden spear weighs more than a straw. So weight gets me that penetration, that constant. If I shoot somebody and it goes through them, I get a primary cavity through their body. If I shoot somebody and it goes in halfway, I get a half cavity. Okay, which one's going to bleed more? A half cavity, or if I go all the way through where he's bleeding out 2 holes? The full cavity. I want, in order to stop a person, you need to disrupt the brainstem or you need blood loss. Blood loss or taking out things to where he can't function. The brainstem, the spine, the hips, the legs, that's going to stop his forward move. That's going to stop most people, but it may not. I mean, there's a shooting in a book, came out a while ago called The Tactical Edge, used to be real important. Guy was shot 43 times with a 9mm and was still able to kill 3 or 4 cops. and they finally shot him with a shotgun, and I think that ended up killing him. So bullet dynamics have come a long way. They've got better expanding bullet, they've got better bullets that feed. Used to be in automatics, when you had these automatics, you could only shoot round ball bullets. Hollow points wouldn't feed. We've gotten better with the hollow points. So because bullets have come a long way, we have better bullet dynamics when we hit people. The thing about bullets, lighter reflects easier. So the lighter the bullet, the more likelihood it's going to ricochet off a bone. If you've got a metal thing, a pin in your pocket, it may ricochet off the pin. A 45 shooting a 230 grain bullet, that bullet, it ain't ricocheting off no pin. It's going through the pin. And it ain't ricocheting off too many bones, it's going through the bone. Because it's heavy, it's mass, it's 230 grain. This little 22 got like maybe 17 grain bullet. When it hits something, it's going ding, 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 ding. It's ricocheting off. But if I hit soft tissue like an eye, it's going in the head and bouncing around. If I hit an ear, it's going in the ear. If I hit the brainstem, even if it ricochets off, it's probably going to do nerve damage and may stop the person. So when you're choosing bullets and you're picking a gun and you want caliber, and somebody's going to tell you, well, you should have a 40 caliber because that's the best round. Man, look, I've carried a 40 caliber as a cop for many years, and when I had my choice, I always carried a 45. And anybody that's been around guns for a long time, if they want a pistol round, it's a 45. Okay? 40's great, the 9mm's great. A lot of police departments start carrying 9mm because when they started hiring females, they didn't like the 45 because it kicked too much. So they wanted a smaller, lighter round so the females weren't scared of it. Now, I know females who know guns and who know bullets would rather carry a 45. But that's how the 9mm became in law enforcement. 9mm didn't come into law enforcement because it was a great round. It didn't come in there because it was a fantastic performer and it worked better. It came because women couldn't shoot the bigger round, so they wanted a lighter, smaller round. That's how we got 9mm. The military's got 9mm. Guess what? Military's got women. Okay? Back before women were in the military, in the fighting positions, they all carried 45. World War II, everybody had a 45. That was a gun. Nobody had a 9mm. The Germans had 9mm. It was a substandard round. So the 45 is a tried and proven round. I'm a big 45 guy. I don't care for other rounds. I've owned every gun, that 32, 22, 25, 9mm, 380, you name it, I had them. After years and years of experience, I want a heavy bullet traveling at a good speed to do damage. Now, an M16 has got a relatively very small light bullet, but it's traveling fast. You get a good secondary cavity. You got all this gunpowder pushing this little bitty bullet. It's going fast. I'm thinking 3,000 feet per second. Okay, this 45 is maybe going 1,000 feet per second. This is going 3 times as fast as this. So when speed and weight, when people want to argue about which one's better, they're both really good. And a combination is really good. But they both do different things. So that's bullets. Hope that helps. I'm at 13, 14 minutes. I can get off on a tangent. I could talk all day about guns and stuff. So hopefully I didn't bore you and you understand a little bit more about bullets. We'll cover that more. I'll say some more. Again, this is kind of the foundation setting. I'm saying a lot of things to get you into terminology, because when I start getting into tactics and moving and we're using other things, I'm going to introduce some more terms, and I want these terms to kind of be set in your head. So make sure you kind of, if you're going to stay with the channel, learn these common words so you don't have to think about it when I say something. Wow, I wonder what that is. Because if you ask me, I'm just going to tell you, go back and look at the damn video, because you didn't listen or study it enough. Because that's just the way I am. And we'll end that there, buddy. Mr. T, you're good boys.